Arise, Tarnished. Elden Ring is finally here, and I know you're not here to listen to me ramble, so let's get straight into this starter guide for Elden Ring. This video is sponsored by no one. Be sure to leave your own tips in the comments down below so that we can all help each other out. Let's go! Firstly, the main decision you'll have to make is your character creator. So your appearance, name, and gender can be changed later, so don't worry too much about that, except your class and keepsake cannot. There are 10 classes to pick, and it can be hard to make a decision here, but I'll give you 4 really good starter classes to get you going. The first is Astrologer, which is a really good mage starting class, which has really good spells, as well as a decent armor to start out with and a high intelligence. Next is the Confessor, which is basically the Paladin. You get a broadsword, a decent shield, as well as the Urgent Heal Faith. So you have a heal incantation right from the start of the game, as well as quality armor and a sword and board to start out with. The Vagabond is your typical knight. There's no spells here. You just get a long sword, a shield, and some decent knight armor to start out with. If you want to just play as a knight with really solid defenses, this is the way to go. And our last is the Samurai, which is a dexterity-based melee character that does have a longbow to start out with. The longbow is really solid for the range, but you do have a really good katana if you want to get up and close with the enemies. The next decision you'll make is picking a keepsake, and a keepsake is your starting item. You get a fair amount of items to choose from here. I would personally suggest to go with the Golden Seed, which is an item that you can find throughout the world, but this is used to increase your flask count, so it will up your total amount of flasks by 1. So starting out with one of these will give you a bit of an edge in the early stages of the game. You will find a Golden Seed pretty quickly, but it's good to start out with one just to give yourself that extra flask for. We'll quickly touch on stats and attributes as well. Firstly, I would say when you're leveling up, don't stat spread. You don't want to level up all of your stats. You want to pick 2 or 3 stats that specifically benefit your specific playstyle. You can read what each of the attributes do in the status menu by hitting the help button and scrolling through and just reading what they will increase when you do choose to increase them. But generally speaking, depending on the class that you pick, you probably want to increase the stats that your starting class has the highest initially. So whatever that may be, if you're starting out as the Astrologer and its intelligence, that's a quality stat to increase. But you can never go wrong with increasing your health, just giving you a little bit of extra health to survive some of the harder fights. Upgrading your gear is actually a better increase to your overall combat power or stats than just straight leveling up. Leveling up is obviously beneficial, but they are minor increases as a whole. Using the smithing table to increase your weapons and leveling them up will give you larger increases to your damage overall than just straight leveling up your character. Now that you're out exploring, let's talk about what to do first. The first thing you want to do is head down to the Church of Eli, which is very close to where you first start, and buy the torch, the crafting kit, and the telescope. The primary one here is the crafting kit. As all the materials you find throughout the world, you will need the crafting kit to be able to turn them into valuable items. Then you want to head to the Gatefront Ruins and clear this area. This is where you'll get your first map fragment, as well as decent gear to start out with, and there's also enemies to kill here, which will start getting you your initial few levels. But the main thing you want to do is head down the ruins to open the chest here, which will give you your first Ashes of War, as well as the whetstone knife, which will allow you to swap out your Ashes of War on weapons. It's not automatic like it was in the closed network test. After some general exploration, more or less at this point, you could probably check and see if they are there. Return to the Church of Ella, and an NPC will be here that will give you a spirit summon bell, as well as your first spirit summon. Spirit summons can be used in most encounters to summon allies to help you in fights, especially with bosses. It's a very valuable thing to have, and you will get the 3 wolves here by talking to this NPC, and the 3 wolves are more or less better than most of the initial spirit summons that you'll get at the very beginning of the game. At this point, you're free to explore. Now, you may want to go to Stormvale Castle here, but I would suggest not to. You could follow the critical path, but it's better to explore Limegrave, level up, collect better gear, kill some of the mini bosses and bosses that are around, and just generally familiarize yourself with the game's combat and mechanics before you try and take on that first boss in Stormvale Castle, which is a bit of like a DPS or skill check, so you want to make sure you're leveled up as much as possible before you go and take them on. The map will highlight the critical path. That's that golden line you can see from certain Lost Graces, but it's better to search for better gear and upgrades and level up in those early stages before following that kind of critical path. You will need to make your own marks on the map, whether it be to NPCs that you find or vendors. bring up the map, add to the markers, and create your own marker here, as they won't automatically mark on the map, and it can be hard to find them later down the line when you forget where everyone was. You should be talking to these NPCs multiple times and listen to what they have to say. Most of the times their dialogue will end, and if you talk to them again, they may say something new, so it's better to keep talking until their lines repeat. They will give you hints about things near them or quests that some of them will have. It's also worth starting like your own personal journal. It's a weird thing to say for a video game in 2022, but if you just want to write things down, if, oh, this NPC over here wants me to go and get this, it will help you track things, as there's no quest log for any of these kind of things. Vendors will often sell you notes, and notes can be found under the info tab in your inventory, and these will contain different information like hints as to where you can find other NPCs or even useful things or items that may benefit you in the long run. You'll also find tutorials here that are stored, and most of these notes are relatively cheap, so you may as well buy them and learn the information that they have for you just to help better and familiarize yourself with the game world. Scarabs can be found everywhere. Typically, when you kill these scarabs, they'll restore your flask, but they can also give you items and ashes of war, so be sure to hunt them down, but just be careful as some of them may explode on you. Also, everything is a trap. That scarab, it's a trap. Can't see around a corner. Trap. That chest, trap. Be careful, assume the worst always. Everything is a trap. Be safe, be careful, take your time, be patient. Combat tips. Stealth is highly valuable. Make sure you're backstabbing and avoiding combat if you need to. Sometimes things will happen and you might get teleported like I did to an extremely high level area, and you're gonna have to stealth or run your way out. Get used to using stealth and backstabbing enemies, as this will benefit you greatly in the long run. Collect resources for crafting all over the place. Anytime you can press that pick up button to pick up materials in the world, mash that button. You can pick up anything while you are riding your Mount Torrent, so be sure to do that, as there are plenty of crafted items that will help give you the edge in combat by changing your damage type, or throw fire pods, or craft different arrow types. There's plenty of different crafting recipes you can find, as well as cookbooks which will teach you different recipes so you can add to that overall list of things that you can craft. Mounted combat is highly recommended for certain bosses and enemies like dragons. Use hit and run tactics on these slower enemies that are gonna just wind up their attacks for ages. Sprint past them, get a couple of hits, and then turn around and sprint back. There's plenty of fights here that are better off taken on from your mount rather than on foot. When you are mounted, it's worth noting that weight doesn't matter, so put on the heaviest armor you have and you can benefit from all of those resistances while still moving on the same speed on your mount. Elden Ring also introduces a guard counter mechanic, so when you block an attack, you can follow up with a heavy attack immediately to do some extra damage. You'll notice that you've done this correctly if you hear that little sound effect. Enemies have a hidden poise meter, including bosses, that can be staggered just like in Sekiro, so you can stagger them, knock them down, and then run up and get a big backstab attack. Casting spells, whether mounted or on foot, also uses stamina as well as your FP, so make sure you have enough stamina to be able to avoid attacks that are coming towards you when you're casting spells. Find a playstyle that suits you, whether it be highly aggressive melee or a defensive mage or something in between. Find a playstyle that suits you and stick to it. Learn how to play that, and you will definitely enjoy this game better than trying to be a jack of all trades and do everything that you possibly can in one playthrough. If you're stuck on a boss, not sure what to do, just go and explore and you'll find something else or something interesting out there to do. I guarantee it, there's plenty of things to do off the beaten path in Elden Ring. Let me know in the comments down below your tips for Elden Ring so we can all help each other out. Thank you for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is NorZZa, and I hope you have a great day.